Joining me now is Michael Tyler, Communications Director for the Harris Campaign 2024. Mr. Tyler, thank you for joining us tonight. Let's start with the latest polling today from NBC News. It shows the Vice President and Donald Trump in a dead heat at 48%. Last month, Harris was leading our poll by 5 percentage points. All of this remains inside the margin of error. And the poll also shows voters consider Vice President Harris as the candidate who best represents change. What do you make of all that 3 weeks before Election Day?
Yeah. Good evening, Reverend. Thank you so much for having me 3 weeks from the election. What I make of this is what we've always known to be true, right? This is going to be a margin of error race down until November 5th. You have a very polarized electorate. You have more and more voters who are beginning to tune in. You have an even smaller universe of voters who have not yet made up their minds. And so for us as a campaign down the final stretch here, it's about using every tool that we have at our disposal to reach those voters that are going to ultimately decide the pathway to 270 electoral votes. And it means the vice president being aggressive out on the stump as she is today in North Carolina. It means this campaign continuing to run ads. It means us knocking on doors, making phone calls, making sure that we are reaching those voters who have not been paying attention to the presidential race for the past year and a half, but who are really now in the month of October beginning to tune in. And so when you speak to the issues, right, who is fighting for the middle class, making sure that we are communicating that day in and day out, that there's one candidate in this race who, as the vice president just said, is actually focused on the American people and providing solutions for them and their problems, right? And that's the vice president. And on the other side, making sure that people understand the risk that Donald Trump poses, the risk of a second Trump presidency, a man who is out here every single day when he's not airing his own personal grievances, is talking about things like what you heard from him this morning, right? Saying that the enemy is from within, right? And that he's willing to use the police or the National Guard or even the military to go after his political opponents. These are the stakes for the American people. We're going to make sure that they understand them down the stretch over the course of the final 23 days.
A lot of strong language from President Trump. Even talked the other day about a day of violence with law enforcement. But the candidates are both in swing states tonight. Donald Trump is set to take the stage any minute for his Arizona rally. Meanwhile, the vice president just wrapped up a campaign rally in North Carolina where she's held several events this weekend. However, we also saw former President Trump rallying in the heavily Democratic state of California last night, and he has a rally scheduled in New York City later this month. How are the campaigns going about these last 23 days differently?
Yeah, I certainly can't speak to Trump's strategy of where he's headed. I know this campaign, Kamala Harris's campaign, is going to be focused on the pathway to 270 electoral votes. That's why she was in Nevada last week, as well as Arizona. It's why she's in North Carolina today. It's why we're headed to Detroit on Tuesday. We're headed to Pennsylvania tomorrow. We're going to make sure that across the blue wall, across the Southwest and across the Southeast, we're doing everything that we possibly can to reach those voters that are going to decide 270. And so for us, it's about making sure that we maintain an aggressive posture down the stretch. And it's also about making sure that we continue to scale up the grassroots operation, right? The candidates are going to do their job, but frankly, there's a role for everybody here. So we're telling people right now, 23 days out, every weekend that you've got, right? Go to KamalaHarris.com, sign up, not just to donate, but to volunteer, to knock some doors, to make some phone calls, to send some texts to your friends and family, to make sure that they have a plan to vote, that they're registered, that they vote early, so we can focus on getting out those last few voters come November 5th. It's an all hands on deck moment for this campaign.
Now, as the vice president assesses hurricane damage in North Carolina today, President Biden was in Florida touring damage done to that state by this month's past storms, both storms. Some voter advocates worry the aftermath of Hilton and Helene may depress voter turnout and impede access in states like Florida, Georgia, and North Carolina. How is the campaign responding to this situation?
Yeah, no, we're paying a lot of close attention, particularly in the state of North Carolina, making sure that we're in contact with our organizers on the ground, that they're making sure that people, particularly in Western North Carolina, where the infrastructure remains a significant challenge, that people, while they rebuild, that's the primary focus, but making sure that people are able to exercise their constitutional right to vote. And so that is going to be a significant part of our efforts here over the course of the final 3 weeks in the state of North Carolina. Another thing, though, as it relates to this storm and the rebuilding efforts, that I do think it's a contrast of leadership styles, right? You have the vice president who's focused on the people, focused on the federal response, making sure that all of the federal agencies are working in coordination so that everybody in every community that's been affected by these hurricanes gets the relief aid that they are entitled to. And on the other side, you have a guy, Donald Trump, who the people who knew him best, the people who worked under him, are telling the American people that when folks similarly had to deal with natural disasters and needed federal assistance, they would have to show Donald Trump polling data in order to convince him that people were worthy of getting the aid that they were entitled to. So as the American people are making their decision down the stretch here, it's clear, again, there's one candidate in this race who's going to be a president for all Americans. That's the vice president. And there's one candidate in this race who cares solely about himself. His North Star is about what's in it for him, and that's Donald Trump. And I think it's very important that people understand that here over the last 3 weeks of the campaign.
Now, Democrats are concerned about black voters turning out for the vice president at the levels she'll need to win in swing states. New polling from the New York Times shows black support for the vice president at 78%, compared with the 90% garnered by President Biden 4 years ago. Meanwhile, Trump may double his black support from 8 years ago. The Harris-Walz campaign launched its Souls to the Polls initiative today, pairing up with prominent black faith leaders to drive turnout using the church as a base. And the vice president spoke earlier at a Greenville, North Carolina church, one of the many she's expected to appear as part of an effort. What else can you tell us?
Yeah. So a couple things. Number one, you mentioned the polling. There's also the CBS polling out today, too, which shows black support for vice president to be about 87%. That's exactly where it was for President Biden at this point in 2020 before he went on to win. But we're frankly not focused on the polling. As the vice president herself will say, she's not taking any vote for granted, right? She is going to earn every single vote. And so that's why she continues to be out on the stump in communities like Greenville. Again, we're going to Detroit later this week, making sure that black voters understand the stakes of this election and that there's one candidate who's actually looking out for their interests and wants to improve the communities, our communities across the country. That's Vice President Harris, right? It's somebody who understands that black men in particular always aim to be strivers, right? They aim to be providers. They aim to open up small businesses and be entrepreneurs. We're proud of the work that the administration has done, for example, as it relates to record low black unemployment, cutting black child poverty in half. But for the vice president, that's the floor of what we can achieve, not the ceiling. And everything that she's talking about on the stump is about what is possible moving forward. And again, that stands in stark contrast to the dark vision that Donald Trump has. We already know the type of president that he was for black America. The things that went up under his presidency by the end of his term for black folks was the unemployment rate and the uninsured rate. We'd see the chaotic vision that he has. His Project 2025 agenda would rip away things like the $35 a month insulin cap, would provide blanket immunity for police no matter what conduct they have. We see the harm that he would cause for black folks across this country. But this campaign is leaving no stone unturned, as you said, right? We've launched Soul to the Polls today. We're going to make sure that we're out on the stump engaging across communities day in and day out for the next 3 weeks, because there's frankly too much at stake for all Americans, and for black America in particular. We're going to make sure that we leave absolutely nothing to chance down the stretch.
Now, before I let you go, I must ask you about the campaign's response to the escalating situation in the Middle East. The Israeli military conducted bombing operations in southern Lebanon overnight, and the U.S. has approved deployment of personnel and anti-missile weapons to Israel to protect against strikes from Iran. Also, earlier today, more than 60 Israelis were injured following a drone strike in northern Israel. 5 people are in critical condition. Earlier this week, we learned that Trump's own Joint Chief of Staff, General Mark Milley, himself considers Trump to be, quote, the most dangerous person in this country. This is his own military man. This is according to a book by Washington Post reporter Bob Woodward. How does the Harris campaign make the case on national security in the final days of this campaign?
Yeah, listen, I think you should look to no one further than the people who knew Donald Trump best when it comes to national security, right? You talked about General Milley, this is the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, saying that Donald Trump does not have the mental acuity nor the fitness to serve as commander-in-chief. You've heard from people like Esper, from Bolton, others, the people who are in the Situation Room with President Trump, who are saying that this is a man who has neither the temperament nor the judgment to manage complex global national security issues as the one that we're dealing with in the Middle East right now. Again, there's one candidate in this race who has the character, who has the temperament, who has the judgment to actually serve as commander-in-chief. That's Vice President Harris. And I think the other thing that General Milley was talking about, again, was the mental acuity. I think it's curious, frankly, why Donald Trump still has refused to release his medical records. The Vice President has done so. She thinks it's important that we be transparent here and release our medical records. Donald Trump still refuses to do so, while we see him spiraling out on the stump every single day, saying the crazy things about the American citizens being the enemy from within, while we see him ducking and dodging mainstream media interviews, right? He dodged 60 Minutes. He dodged the second debate. We don't really see him all that much, except for when he's at the MAGA rallies where he says all of this crazy nonsense. And so I think it remains an important point for the American people to actually understand what exactly Donald Trump is hiding here.
Michael Tyler, you give me the impression you don't believe his last report that he's only 230 pounds and going to live to 200 years old. Thank you, Michael Tyler, for being with us, Harris Campaign Communications Director.